Sure. Greetings, everybody. Should we start with just a moment of silence where we can coalesce our energies, harmonize ourselves, and um, and just unify our minds just for a moment. Om Shanti. Maybe it's been said, that the purpose of life um, is to discover true love. And maybe the purpose of Brahman life is to explore and become that love. In the BK world, love is a much discussed term, isn't it? A common currency in our conversations and dialogues. It's very easy to be lost in the theory, labelism that we use. God's love, the ocean of love. He removes our love. He showers us with love, increases our love. And we're full of the terminology of love, that all the time love becomes a common part of our dialogues. The question I would like to ask and put forth to you guys is: do we see its manifestation in our lives, and especially in our relationships? So for this session, I'd like to suggest 12 steps. I came up with 12 steps at the top of my head. There's probably about 200 steps. And I'm sure you can add some more steps that I've missed out that will help and remind us and suggest, help us refocus our awareness and bringing love more purposefully into our kind of lives and our relationships. So it's my task is to try and remember the 12 steps that I came up with. So if I go over the top or I come less, you can remind me. So the first step in our very short session is one, be there. And it's really about, when we're with others, is to show up, be fully present, be available to people around you. And I think we can't experience or share love if physically we're there, but mentally we're somewhere else. And I think in a way it's helpful for us to focus on the person in front rather than sometimes we're semi-engrossed with our concerns, our worries, our insecurities. And love unfolds when we get out of our head and into our heart. So the question I would like to put to you is that how can we love if we're not there? And this can happen in lots of different forms of relationship, as you well know. And it's happened to all of us, I'm sure. The second step I'd like to focus on is about being open. And love is, of course, we can all agree is very powerful. But it won't work, or we can't share it, if our heart is closed. And often there's an occasion that we lock down our hearts subconsciously, we stay safe and we withdraw and we stay protected within our own kind of world. And it's not really about, I think sharing love is not really about exposing ourselves and all our kind of weaknesses at one particular time. But it's just about, it's letting others into our world. It's about sharing our opinions, feelings, our worries. It's like we need to try and test this. And if we're unsure about this, our confidence in this will grow and develop. Often it's because of the fear we have of losing, and we stay protected behind the wall of of conservatism, or kind of reservedism, or just structuralism that we've set up within ourselves. In fact, we've got nothing to lose, but we feel we have nothing to lose, so we don't open ourselves up in a natural way. I, uh,
Sorry for interrupting you. They're asking if you can speak more slow.
okay, right, impossible for me, but anyway, I'll try.
Try. Yeah.
Your love center begins then to grow and open. The third area I'd like to focus on, the third step, is about being honest. Um, Being truthful is not just about telling lies, which most people kind of regard honesty about, but it's about sharing all of yourself with another. It's not pretending to be someone else. It's not about hiding behind a false personality, disguising ourselves in a certain role or certain type of behavior. People know when you're false and you're not truthful. And also, don't we, sometimes create an image of a perfect me, which doesn't include a vulnerable me. So we lie, aren't we? I'm using very strong words, but we do. We lie about everything. We, we know we say, um, I never had any issues. Um, I never worried about this. I never needed help. We don't reveal our vulnerabilities, the issues that we also had. And we kind of fabricate this perfected self, and we don't show the real self, and we don't help others to kind of align with our own experiences. And what happens is that we alienate others. And what happens is we're closing our hearts. And so we don't let others into our world. We stand outside. Others are outside, and we're where we're at. It's like we're in this kind of uh, fortress of our own kind of fabricated spirituality in that particular way. The fourth step about moving towards being loving is being kind. And this is because often because of insecurities, our ego, maybe a different opinion or a different attitude is felt like a challenge, an argument, or an attack. Being kind in love means accepting that people can't always meet your expectations. It's giving them leeway, right? It's about accepting how they act and how they respond. It's appreciating them for their effort and their position. And it's kind of stepping back, not it's just allowing them to manifest their experience in that particular way. And so it allows a kind of a relationship of empathy to develop in that particular way. Another area that we can use and think about is be willing to listen. Love, I believe, needs to be heard uh, in order for it to flourish, in order for it to grow. yet it needs my responsibility to listen as well as to talk. Love is a conversation. I don't know if you'd agree, it's not a monologue. Initially, we're full of things, I wanted to explain. My head, also my heart, maybe, my heart is full of emotion that I want to express. My mouth is too full of words that I need to be heard. When listening, though, we learn valuable insights into the other consciousness that's in front of us. We learn about others. It helps us to kind of step back and begin to see the reality and the real personality of that soul. We hear their concerns, their self-doubts, their words of love. And then we're able to help, support, and a connection then begins to grow. And I think automatically the other soul then begins to draw comfort from being heard. I think we knew that from our own experiences, that if we used to others listening and listening to our voice, listening to our feelings, we feel then something is happening, something is moving forward in a very positive way. So listening fully says, I love you. It's a very dramatic way of expressing love. We don't often have to say the words, but the experience or the manifestation of our own kind of body language, our own purposeful interaction. I don't think you can speak the language of love until you learn to listen first. I think it's a very crucial area about listening. And personally, I think many of us have got a lot to learn in this aspect of listening. Number 6, be willing to understand. I think listening, we're talking about listening, I think listening is only half of learning the language of love. The other half is understanding what you hear. It's deciphering it in that particular way. So we need to be open to a different perspective, even an opposite view. Learning to see that there can be an alternative way, an equally valued viewpoint, even though that might seem amazing to us, to our ego, that others have got something equally important to say. I think it's more than being appreciative and aware of another's view and belief. I think it's consciously embracing you're one of two. And this is really, I think, a very important aspect. I think sometimes our teachings place us in a position of us and them, and there's this alienation. And so, and the student or the person feels separated. But I really think love is about this aspect of a unity of consciousness. And it opens us up. It consciously says, our love is big enough to handle differences, opinions, and philosophies. We can see the common perspective, the common connection between our two belief systems or our two stances. When we see, in fact, it's quite interesting, isn't it? When we see all the different cultures, all the millions of beliefs and the words and the teachings, isn't it to help us kind of have more empathy in a feeling that there must be something in these to give them some kind of connection or some kind of guidance. And love is about appreciating that particular stance or that particular where they're coming from. It's appreciating this, not dismissing it, which sometimes, if we take kind of Gyan in a fundamental way, can be quite dismissive in that way. But it's about appreciating the common denominator between us all and where they're coming from and where we're going to. It's not that, I think, in a way, I was just thinking about this earlier, it's not that it's rude and inflammatory speaking your mind. I mean, in some cultures, it's rude not to speak your mind, isn't it? Some of you might share that. But also not to disagree or say the wrong thing, just to give an accepted response. Love says, I think, there's another way. There are other ways. It's more important to be honest and fully understand each other than simply appease one another just for the sake of that particular stance. It may work initially, but I think it's more important to in a way, lay your cards on the table, but in the same way, with an understanding of where the other person's coming from and listening to what the other person believes and seeing some form of kind of connectedness, a common place where you can move together. There was another area. I'm sorry to be jumping around because it's such a big topic, and I was just thinking all the ways that we can um, uh, move forward with our love. And one of the areas that kind of I notice a lot is the language that we use or don't use. You know, um, what would you say is the universal language of love? Is there a universal language of love? What about thanks? Or how are you? Or you're looking fine today. These are words of love, not words of correction. These are words of care. Or how often do we hear each other saying to each other, I liked what you said. I appreciated what you did. How often do you hear this? These are the words, this is the currency of love manifesting in relationship in that particular way, isn't it? And there are many more, of course, isn't there? That how we connect with each other. And what happens is that I feel we isolate ourselves and we pass like ships in the night when we don't communicate. And there's a kind of feeling, there's a feeling that if I can't talk to the other person if it's not about knowledge, and we deny a kind of an experience of relationship or a family or a friendship. But the door opener are these kind of terms. How are you today? Where I come from, a common one is, it's a nice day today. What's the weather like? It's going to be a nice day because the weather's so changeable. but it connects and enables us to have a rapport or have a continuing conversation or connection. At least it's acknowledgement. Often we see many of us not even making eye contact in that particular way. So I'd like to move on to number 7. I'm not going too fast. And number 7, I was thinking about the willingness to accept. It's about acceptance. I think we need to accept each other for who they are. Yeah, but I think that doesn't really guarantee that love will flourish in a relationship. For that, I think you have to accept ourselves for who we are, who we really are, and what we are, and where we're going. I think to allow love, to let love in, we need to believe that we are worthy of love, that the other person is worthy of love. It's like moving away from a kind of a subconscious elitism that somehow we've allowed to be we've let it slip in from the kind of imperialistic stances of bhakti, which created a hierarchy that only certain people were worthy of love, or certain people were entitled to love. But spiritual love is about opening our hearts to the universality of love in that particular way. I believe there's a need to embrace our imperfect self. I think it's not about polishing the edges, you know, smoothing over our weaknesses, hiding the defects, all our little difficulties. And the words I use sometimes is quirk, and others too, is to realize at present that we're not perfect and reveal that, and to show and to express that I too needed help. I too made mistakes. And I was doing my best and I was okay. And it kind of validates the other person's position. It validates maybe what they're going through. Maybe they can't express it openly, or they haven't got the confidence. But it's saying, well, it's okay, We're not perfect from the beginning, far from it. But sometimes it needs to be seen and heard. And when we express that, it brings others, it opens their hearts. It gives others hopes. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's about a situation. If there's a situation, uh, accepting no matter how large a mess or miscommunication, it's the thought of that person's gone into that situation. They've created that mess with good intention. They did it with love. Maybe the outcome wasn't so good, but the initial intention was good. And to have that thought and not to kind of create a label and to create that judgment that the others will feel and feel that you posted it on them. I think it takes time, to open our arms to another's idiosyncrasies, seeing their blind spots, and maybe their kind of strange points of view. I think it needs patience. and not to have a kind of dismissal consciousness, that they're like this. We're very good judges, aren't we? That we can judge people immediately without seeing the evidence, without having that empathy, without having that loveful insight. The intention was good, but the outcome wasn't so good. And then think about yourself. How often does it happen to ourselves that we started out with the right intention, but we said the wrong thing, we did the wrong stuff, and we just wanted others to understand that. And so in a way, it's a kind of a consciousness that we have to engender, I feel, within the spiritual family to enable us to all move together in a very powerful way. And to have a thought that each is unique, each is wonderful. And I think this is unconditional love. This is unconditional acceptance. It's okay. Baba would say, it's okay. Don't worry. When Bab Dada would meet so many souls, he would say, it's okay. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Because he knows that the whole drama is revealing its perfect self and will become perfect. But we often want to become we want to stand outside and we kind of make kind of judgments on certain situations in that particular way. It's an interesting topic, I think, isn't it, about acceptance. I'd like to move on to maybe another one. I'm trying to keep up with. I'm looking at the time. I hope I'm not going too quickly. I think also be willing to support others. And I think it starts first looking for signs that the other person is struggling. That often we go around, with a spiritual demeanor. We're very holy. I'm just turning traffic control I've got there on the side here. It'd drown me out, I think. I think we often sometimes sort of move around with a kind of holier than thou kind of consciousness in that particular way. And we miss others who are calling for help or needing help in that particular way. And I think it means putting our own battles on hold for a while. It's amazing how regard and love develops as a result. So often we're caught up with our own emotional and physical issues, isn't it? And battling with these, we miss the issues of others. And conversely, helping others getting through their stuff. And it's quite interesting, I think. This is a kind of an interesting kind of twist. We gain solutions to our own mess. Rather than focusing on ourselves, by helping others, we help ourselves. That it's a kind of karmic thing, isn't it? But I think it applies to everything. That okay, you're going through stuff. Help others first, and then you help yourself. And there's a kind of psychology in that. It's quite interesting in that particular way, where we can kind of move in a very powerful way. There's some kind of interesting psychology within all that, but we haven't got time really to kind of dwell on the depth of that in particular. I'd like to look at. I've got a list over here of my steps. Otherwise, I'd never remember them actually. Um, uh, the ninth step is the willingness to forgive. I think there will always be mistakes between people, yeah. A misunderstanding. It will always be there. And I think that's a give, isn't it? in relationships. Mistakes are part of the process of our development, is part of our evolution in that particular way, you know. Um, and maybe we can just see it as a really as an opportunity for love in disguise to emerge. You know, that when these things happen, it's an opportunity for us to move forward, you know. And I think often, isn't it, then when situations occur or circumstances or people make big mistakes, we exaggerate, we imagine the worst, we multiply small stuff, you know, we kind of like take it out of proportion, and we create whole scenarios, don't we? You know, over misconceptions and errors. It's been part of a kind of sanskaral kind of tendency of mankind for ages, isn't it? You know, part of the way we connected is by kind of gossiping and exaggerating and just talking about things and talking, not understanding it, we distort it, doesn't it, in that particular way. But what does forgiveness say? Forgiveness says um, that mistake is tiny, but our love is large. You know, our love is strong. It's strong enough for mistakes. It's like we envelop it, we smother it, we drown it with compassionate love and understanding. And then we'll find love growing, compassionate growing in our consciousness, not only for in our relationships, but for ourselves. I think everything is for us anyway, of course, isn't it? We understand that. But as we connect, as we manifest it in our relationships, it grows. And often maybe that sometimes one of the reasons why we feel maybe we're not moving forward, we're not spiritually evolving, we're not spiritually developing, is because we're not manifesting Baba's teachings, Baba's love. We're talking about love. I mean, everything is love, really, isn't it? Everything is an aspect of love or a facet of love. We're not showing it, we're not revealing it, we're not giving it, we're kind of holding on to it. And it's quite interesting, you know, that we tend to have this sanskar, I think, is within kind of mankind, that we hold things within ourselves. We won't let it go. You know, one of the big advices that Baba gives us is he says, let go, but let everything go. But it also means give everything away. Give everything, give your time, give your energy, and allow things to open, to change, to develop, to flow, to grow in that particular way. Look at my number 10. Yeah, I can see number 10. Um, I was just thinking a little bit about time. You know, we're kind of we're slaves of the clock, aren't we? We're slaves of of the great uh, time zones. And often we use an excuse, don't we, sometimes for being too busy. And we turn our back on the waving, needy hand. But I think we have to make time, you know, for the very reasons what I've just been talking about in that particular way. I think it's setting the clock of benevolence and drama. Maybe it's the hand of God. I think that the issues that occur are really signposts. They're really major learning curves for us to pay attention to for our spiritual journey. And if we ignore them and we don't take benefit, we don't embrace them, we don't give time to them, it takes a while for them to return again. And so we delay our journey in that particular way. Um, Maybe number 11. I look at number 11. I'm looking at the time. It's like seeing with new eyes, you know, that we often have a kind of default position, don't we? Sometimes, for situations and people, and approach them in the same old way, in the same words, the same attitude, and so on. And I was reminded of one of my favorite quotes is from an Irish playwright called Oscar Wilde. And he said, the only person who really knows me as I am is my tailor. Every time I go to him, he takes a fresh measurement. Others only see me as I always was. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Others always see me as I always was. And kind of what he's saying, isn't it? That people, situations are constantly changing. So I think we need to approach and meet others with unclouded, unprejudicial opinions, and a new, fresh, and maybe successful response then will arise. So seeing with new eyes. Spirituality is all about seeing with new eyes, isn't it? But how often do we see each other and circumstances stepping back in that particular way? And I think we came up number 12. We've got one more left. And I was just thinking, one of the things that I've been working on a lot is uh, working with Baba in the subtle region. The Baba is in the subtle region. And I feel that this is the place where all Brahmins should be. That I feel that now we should be abandoning even the labelism of a Brahmin, and we should be becoming angelic or angels. The angel lives in the subtle region, lives with Bapdada. And maybe when we're connecting with others, maybe when we're having an issue, bringing them to Baba in the subtle region. Sit them with Bapdada and then allow the vibration, the energy, the experience to manifest. See what happens. So bring them to Baba in the subtle region. It's so easy to do. You might say, how do you do this? Just take them. There's persons in front of you. Bring them. Sit them with Bapdada. And allow that energy, allow that vibration, allow that effect to then work on the mindset of that person. They may be in distress, they may be in confusion, they may need some kind of clarity. But when you take, it's like going above, taking them in that level, in that level of transcendence. The issue, the circumstances clears, and then for a moment, I believe they'll get some insight. They'll get a feeling of hopefulness, an experience of what love is. Love is that clarity in that particular way. So I'll stop there in that particular way. And I don't know if I've got time. Oh, I've got one. There's one thing I'd like to read. And this I just knocked it on the floor. This is really about our topic, and it's a kind of statement by Ram Dass, and it's about comparing our attitude to trees. And I think it really kind of it fits our topic. So I'll read, it's only a short little passage, but it's very powerful. When you go into the woods, you look at trees. You see all these different trees, and some of them are bent, Some of them are straight. Some of them are evergreen. And some of them are whatever. And you look at the tree and you allow it. You see why it is that way it is. That's the way it is. You sort of understand maybe that it didn't get enough light. And so it turned out that way. And you don't get all emotional about it. You just allow it. You appreciate the tree. The minute you get near humans, you lose all that. And you're constantly saying, you are to this, or I'm to this. That judging mind comes in. And so I practice turning people into trees, which means appreciating them just the way they are. So it's a very beautiful advice from Ram Dass. So I'll stop there, Maria.
Yes, thank you so much
Hope
for
it wasn't too
sharing.
confusing, really.
No, 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 it was perfect and
Oh,
really,
like me, perfect. Yeah, good.
yes, I don't see any questions,
Yeah.
but whatever you said need a
Confused
lot
me
of.
even more.
No, 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 no. They were wonderful. And yes, especially when you ended up with this beautiful thing about the trees. Yes, we should appreciate everyone. And what you shared about at the end also about Baba taking them to Baba. Um, can you say something about how and why we don't take them to Baba? We know it, but we don't. And in our relationships, we want to be polite, we want to be honest, we want to forgive, and we probably do that for a few minutes and then we forget it. And then why we forget? What is the reason we forget and we don't express the love that Baba wants us to express and Baba's love? Why we don't take them to Baba?
Well, that's a good question. Good points you're making. Why do we forget? I think our mind is full of other things, that sometimes we have too many other things in our mind. And so what it becomes a mishmash, a confusion, like a stew, and things are kind of mixed up. And there isn't that clarity. I mean, that one of the things that thing about knowledge, it's very pure. Spiritual knowledge is a very pure essence, a very pure substance. And this is why people find it hard to remember. It's like Baba gives the analogy of mercury. It slips away. It's very hard to recall. That in many places, when they do Murli revision, people can't remember. They just heard the Murli. They've just heard, they sat there for 45 minutes or whatever, and they can't remember what was said in that time because maybe what's been in their head, other thoughts. There's been other kind of concerns that was there, and so they can't stay together. So sometimes we forget in that way, but also I think another reason is because it's not seeing the significance of what Baba is saying. That is really is a kind of sense of realization. The path of self-realization is about this is God. So it's understanding one, God is teaching you, and these are the words of God. This is the advice of God, and this is information that will help me and benefit my life. Now, if you realize that or accepted that, you would then remember it, and then you would then be able to use it. I think that sometimes is one of the processes that I think we all go through. You know, I remember coming into Gyan myself, and I kind of like took me a while for me to understand or remember many of the aspects of spiritual knowledge because I didn't see the significance or the benefit or the meaning of it. It was a kind of like words. And so I think in a way for us, we have to practice this. We have to create, um, see it as a study. You know, but this is again, Baba says, this is a spiritual university. And so you have to practice the process of increasing awareness through kind of repeated study, revising the knowledge, which means practicing it. So practice it in different ways. But the question you ask connected with this is about why don't we bring souls to God? This is now that's a quantum movement from just understanding what's happening, because this aspect is about being subtle. It's about really stepping away from the consciousness of the body and adopting a new role of consciousness, which is the angelic consciousness. This is adopting the body of light, which is framed by spiritual awareness and knowledge. The body of light, the angel, is a component of understanding, wisdom, love, and inner wisdom. And this component of consciousness needs to be constantly integrated. If the moment, if I allow other things to sabotage it, mundane consciousness, physical awareness, physical act, they break up. They're not conducive. So it's kind of we need that effort to maintain. It's a very high state of consciousness, the angelic state, but it's a very powerful state, and I think it's not a difficult state. And Bap Dada, where is Bap Dada? He's in the subtle region. He's there. He's he's there in a state of manifestation. Why don't we go to him? Go there now. Just go. Let's all go there now. Go there. See Bap Dada there. He's there. He's our spiritual mother, father. See him there. Be there in that body of light. Say hello. Maybe bring now somebody that you know, maybe a relative, maybe somebody in distress, somebody in sorrow. Bring them. Bring them, their subtle form, to the subtle regions with Bap Dada and bring them there in front of Baba. Just hold them there for a while. This is a very powerful state. They're receiving that experience. They're receiving that vibrational energy. Wherever they are now, they'll be feeling that energy. So this is really using the subtle regions as a platform for you to do service, to interact. You can bring situations there. You know what you could try? So I'll share you one thing I was trying the other day. I was bringing the city of Gaza to the subtle regions, to Bap Dada. The whole of Gaza to the subtle regions. I can't help them, but Bap Dada can. Bring the whole of Gaza there. And he's saying, oh, good. At least you're doing something now. You can do anything. Everything and anything is possible. Just do it. Souls, individuals, places, bring them to the subtle regions. Allow that energy, allow that vibrational impact to affect the situation. Let God have his moment. very powerful. Experiment with this. And don't think it's not work. It is. Just go there. Bring them. Bring soul. Bring your friends. Bring your mother. Bring your family. Bring your work situation. Bring people who are in sorrow. People in hospitals, in hospices. Bring them. And see the benefit. This is serving through the mind. This is subtle service. You know, this is meditation, actually. I think this is true meditation. Sitting, remembering God is bhakti. I'm being controversial. You see, you're just sitting there. Oh, Baba. Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, good vibrations. Come on, we need to be proactive. You are angels. The angel is a messenger. An angel is a co-worker, an instrument of God that supports God in his work of transformation and healing. But this is what we should be doing. When we sit down, we should be traveling the world. We should be supporting souls who are in sorrow. People who are in shanty towns. People who are in prison. People who are suffering. People in absolute despair. We should be going, reaching, uplifting them in that way.
So thank you. It was really very powerful what you said. And there is a comment here. You're an angel that Baba sent to help the family. Really beautiful, brother. This is a comment because you really brought the subtle region through the Zoom. And
We
you
all
gave
got
us,
the suffer region, all
yeah.
of us. We're all there.
Yes, there is something also on the chat. It looks as if your 12 steps of love is also to destroy our own ego.
Yeah.
How soul consciousness can help us to have pure love for others. Actually, you mentioned that, but there was this question as well.
I think is when we let go completely. I mean, I think the only way we can let go of ego, if it's possible, is when we become completely angelic. Even the angel who says, "I am an angel," is slightly egotistical. There's some ego. It's like I think ego will always be there to some degree, but to say I'm a Brahmin is almost physical consciousness. I'm a Brahmin. But I think it's like we have to let go of being a Brahmin. We have the next step is being the angel. The Brahmin is the takeoff point. It's like we relinquish being a Brahmin. It's like we take off the coat of the Brahmin. It's like the butterfly. It's like the caterpillar. You're absorbing the knowledge. The Brahman of not absorbs knowledge, absorbs understanding, absorbs awareness, absorbs the right way of things, and then goes into silence, cocoon, and then gets rid of and becomes the butterfly, which is the angel. And the angel then goes away, spreading beauty, and we become that angelic being, the butterfly of pure consciousness, the butterfly of love. So we let go of it's almost like the ego it's like the last ego is the Brahman. In a subtle, you understand what I'm saying? It's like the last ego is the Brahman. Become free and become one with God. And this is really our true purpose, is not to be Brahman and all the stuff that goes with that. The Brahman world is mixed. It has vestiges of the old world in it, politics and uh, position and jealousies, and we all know the games. It's still all part of that old world. as people are discovering the right way of things. It's like we're trying to find the right way. And then we just become, and then ascend, become the angel, and just become one with Baba, just free. And then we become we become fulfilled. I think it's not to worry. I think many Brahmins are in a state of kind of flux, talk between the old world and the new consciousness. What shall I? It's like you left it. It's like we need to let go of being a Brahmin. And then once we let go of that and become the angel, then we are fulfilled. This is the purpose of our lives. This is the purpose of higher consciousness, to be one with God. This is being one with God. And in bhakti, it's like oneness. And this is really oneness and serving in the unlimited way.